The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the comfortable kind that settles between strangers on a long road trip, but the sharp, unnatural quiet that feels like a prelude to something worse. The only sound was the faint hum of the car's engine and the rhythmic bump of the tires over the uneven asphalt. The kid was in the back seat. Small, no more than 8 years old, with matted blonde hair and a face streaked with dirt. He hadn't said a word since I picked him up, just stared out the window like he could see something I couldn't. I'd found him on the side of the road, barefoot and shivering in the rain. No houses for miles, no cars passing by, just this kid standing there like a ghost. I should have kept driving. Should have convinced myself it was none of my business. But I didn't. "Hey," I'd called out, rolling the passenger window down. "You okay? Where's your family?" He didn't answer, just took a hesitant step toward the car. His eyes were wide, too wide, and when he finally climbed in, he clutched the seatbelt like it was the only thing keeping him from falling. "What's your name?" I asked once we were back on the road. He didn't answer. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where are you headed? Maybe I can help." Still nothing. Just that eerie, unblinking stare out the window. I tried the police station. Tried the fire station. Both closed, their lights off and parking lots empty. Small town, middle of the night. I told myself it made sense, but a chill crept up my spine anyway. The kid didn't seem to mind. He didn't seem to mind anything, really. Just kept staring out that window, his little hands clutching his knees like they might fly away. The roads grew narrower, the trees denser, and the GPS on my phone blinked out of service. Great. Just great. "Look, kid," I said, glancing at him through the rearview mirror. "I'm just trying to help here. You've got to give me something. A name. A town. Anything." He turned to me then, for the first time since I'd picked him up. "We can't stop," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What?" "Don't stop. Not yet." It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them. Flat, emotionless, like he was reciting a fact he'd known his whole life. My knuckles tightened on the wheel. Why not? They'll find us. Something cold twisted in my gut. Who's they? He didn't answer, just turned back to the window. The silence in the car grew heavier, thicker, pressing down on me like a physical weight. My pulse quickened, and I had to remind myself to breathe. "It's just a kid," I told myself. Just a scared kid. Except he didn't look scared. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the road ahead. I kept driving, unsure of where I was going or what I was running from. And then, just as I was beginning to think I'd imagined the whole thing, he spoke again. "Left. Take a left up here." I didn't ask how he knew where we were. Didn't ask why I should trust him. I just turned the wheel and followed his instructions. The road twisted and turned, the trees on either side forming a tunnel that seemed to stretch endlessly. My heart pounded in my chest, and I had to resist the urge to look over my shoulder, half expecting to see. What? Flashing lights? A car tailing us? Shadows that didn't belong? "Are we close?" I asked, my voice tight. "Almost," he said. His tone didn't change, but there was something in his posture now, a tension that hadn't been there before. The road ended abruptly at a clearing. A small, weathered building stood at the center, its windows dark and its door slightly ajar. The kind of place you'd pass 100 times and never notice. The kid unbuckled his seatbelt and opened the door before I could stop him. "Wait," I called after him, stepping out of the car. "What is this place?" He didn't answer, just walked toward the building with that same unsettling calm. I followed, my steps hesitant. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint smell of mildew. The walls were lined with shelves filled with old tools and boxes I didn't recognize. The kid stopped in the center of the room and turned to face me. "You shouldn't have stopped for me," he said. A chill ran down my spine. "What are you talking about?" "They're here," he whispered. And then I heard it. The sound of footsteps outside, slow and deliberate. My heart leapt into my throat, and I turned toward the door, my mind racing. Who was out there? What did they want? The kid grabbed my hand, his grip surprisingly strong for someone so small. "Don't go," he said, his eyes locking onto mine. "They can't come inside." The footsteps grew louder, closer, and I backed away from the door, pulling the kid with me. My mind screamed at me to run, to get out of there, but my body wouldn't move. And then, just as suddenly as they'd started, the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. I glanced out the window but saw nothing. No movement, no shadows. Just the empty clearing and the car parked a few feet away. "Who are they?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The kid didn't answer. He just stared at the door, his expression unreadable. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours, and when I finally mustered the courage to step outside, there was nothing there. No footprints in the dirt. No sign that anyone had been there at all. When I turned back to the building, the kid was gone. I searched for him, calling his name, or at least the name I'd given him in my head, but he'd vanished. The building was empty, the surrounding woods silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Now I'm back in the car, driving aimlessly down roads I don't recognize, my heart still pounding in my chest. The kid's voice echoes in my head, and every shadow on the side of the road feels like a threat. I don't know who he was or what I got myself involved in. I only know one thing for certain: I'll never stop for a stranger again. But as the miles stretch on and the silence grows heavier, a new fear begins to creep in. What if I didn't find him? What if he found me? The car's engine sputtered, dragging me back to the present. The fuel gauge blinked empty, and the road ahead was nothing but endless black. I pulled over to the shoulder, my breath hitching in my throat. There was no sign of life. No lights, no houses, not even the faint hum of distant traffic. Just the oppressive quiet. I fumbled with my phone, hoping for a signal. Nothing. My hands shook as I reached for the flashlight in the glove compartment. The beam cut through the darkness, weak and unsteady, but it was enough to reveal the trees that loomed on either side of the road, their branches tangled like skeletal hands. Then I saw it. A figure standing at the edge of the woods, just barely visible in the dim light. My breath caught, and I froze, the flashlight trembling in my grip. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. It was too far to make out any details, but I knew, deep in my gut, that it was watching me. "Hello," I called, my voice cracking. The figure remained still. I backed toward the car, keeping the light trained on the spot where it stood. But as I reached for the door handle, the beam flickered and went out. Panic surged through me, and I scrambled into the driver's seat, locking the doors with shaking hands. The engine groaned as I turned the key, but it wouldn't start. I slammed my fist against the wheel, cursing under my breath. In the rearview mirror, the figure was gone. Or so I thought. A soft tap on the back window made me whip around, my heart hammering in my chest. There was nothing there. Just the empty road and the suffocating darkness. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the flashlight like a lifeline, jumping at every rustle of leaves or crack of a branch. When dawn finally broke, the woods looked almost peaceful, bathed in soft, golden light. But the sense of unease didn't fade. The car started on the first try, as if nothing had happened. I drove until I found a gas station, the sight of its bright lights and bustling patrons a balm to my frayed nerves. But as I stepped inside to pay,